Well, we used to call it the caffeine high, right? Because people would leave the workshop and then they would crash afterwards. And then all the money they spent and the time on these gurus, for example, was basically lost.
Hey folks, welcome to the Everyday Millionaire Mindset Matters. Steffany.
Hey, hon.
So, crazy week. Actually, a couple of crazy weeks. We've been busy. So, we did a throwback Thursday. But in amongst all that, what I was talking about crazy, somebody tried to take Trump out. And then just as of yesterday, Joe Biden stepped down. He's not running for president because he's not competent or he can no longer do that, but he can still be president in the interim. I don't know. It's pretty messy out there.
It is. And, it's funny that those kinds of things are coming up as we, fight for clarity and fight for, what we believe to be true and a values-based system and decisions. And then you look outside and go, wow, is this really a clown world?
It is. We are in the matrix. There's no doubt about that. So in this particular episode, there was a couple things I want to touch on, which is not the least of which we are, again, launching our Shift program. That'll be upcoming in September. Now, if you're just interested in learning more about it, email me at ceo@reincanada.com, ceo@reincanada.com to find out about the Shift program that'll be happening in September. But if you want some details, and want to be a first on the list, again, these are small groups. We'll be hosting it here on our property in Abbotsford, British Columbia, the beautiful Fraser Valley of BC. So if you want to know more about that, ceo@reincanada.com. You can be the first to receive the insights and the information to the details of that program. Really, when we talk about Shift 2024, clarity equals velocity continues to be the theme. And more we're seeing and hearing and sensing where there is a fundamental lack of what people are trying to work backwards from. They're dissatisfied with so many things, whether it be their weight, their career, their relationships, significant relationships as in marriage or team relationship within their working environment. There's just a lot of dissatisfaction. And what I'm seeing and hearing, and we know this to be kind of a fact, is that people are looking outside of themselves for what is the cause of all of the challenges they face. And for this particular podcast, I'd like to kind of go into some of the layers and some of the thought processes that we engage in, and we, talk about what we coach, those kinds of things. But it really is about, what are we seeking clarity about? And that's kind of where I'd like to go with that. Before we get started and I start to ramble on anymore, any comments you want to make along the way?
Well, to your point, I think for the clarity standpoint, if you are clear, if you're standing in the light of your own truth, quiet, gentle, graceful in making the decisions that you make to move yourself, your family forward, your businesses, maybe it's a job, maybe it's, like you say, a relationship. If you're clear, the people around you will feel comforted and safe and connected to you. And when you're not clear, that's when things get really bumpy. That's what it is. When I'm not clear, things get bumpy around me and people can't support me. They don't know how to, if it's a friend or family member, or if it's a contractor, staff, they don't know where they stand. So I think a lot of what's happening in the clown world is designed to keep us unclear. So Mom always said, do the opposite, not the obvious. So what I want to do is the opposite of the clown world situation out there, and to really help people slow down, connect to themselves, connect to what's real in their lives. Mm-hmm. Get off mainstream media, get off social media scrolling, the doom scrolling, because it's so addictive and so attractive to so many people, and it pulls you out of your own life. It takes you away from being present in your own life. So that's all I want to just say about that. And I know that I want to be that safe harbor, in the storm for people if I can, if we're invited to. It's what I love to do. It's what we love to do. And I think it's really important during these times. We thought the last 4 years were disruptive. Down to your hats, folks.
Yeah, hang on to your hats. Could get a little bit crazy, to say the very least. But, I guess if you're You also have the option to not choose to participate and making sure that you just keep doing what you're doing. Now, there may be nothing wrong with that, but also being aware of what's going on in the world. I think that is also a little bit about hedging your bet and risk mitigation. So when we look at and have these conversations around, the shift, and one of the programs within Shift, we talked about Think Tank, which we've done a few of those, and have had fun doing the think tanks. And then one of a program that we want to relaunch as we go forward will be called Presence. And the kind of what sparked that was that realization that we should do and relaunch that program, because it was from several years ago, and it was part of Quantum Speed, and it was part of working with athletes. You and Rick had launched that program some time ago. But anyways, we're going to go back to that. But it's understanding that, as we go through the actions of understanding ourselves, going on the journey, if you will, of self-discovery, that we start to see that a lot of what we're suffering in life is not because of what's happening outside of us. It's because of how we're showing up, what we're choosing not to do, the choices that we're making or not making. And we talk about the how-tos, how do we work through that, understanding what our values are, putting habits into place or creating habits, discipline. We talk about having systems in place, and being able to, let's say, master communication and be on the journey of personal growth, so that it just becomes part of what you do. It becomes part of your lifestyle, whether it's personal growth or professional growth. And really looking and working backwards from an outcome. And time and again, we start to see where people are just not clear about what they're working backwards from. In other words, they're not clear on what their purpose is. They don't understand what would be, if they're looking for fulfillment, which many are, what would give them that fulfillment. What are the type of relationships that they want to have? Because maybe they're being impacted by toxic relationships, or relationships that are actually unfulfilling, or relationships that are big energy leaks. And so how do we shift and get into a world where we are understanding what our purpose is, what our mission is? We are fired up about continuous growth, not intimidated by it or tired of it, or I don't want to do the work, which goes back to I want change. I just don't want to have to change. Of course, we know that that's one of the blocks that often gets in the way. So when we start to break these things down and we go back to the Presence program, you and Rick launched that. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that was about? And then we can start to give some kind of details of some actions for people to put in place right away.
Well, when I first started working for the Edmonton Oilers as a skating and conditioning coach, I really wanted to align myself and surround myself with like-minded service providers. So Hanlon Consulting became a consortium of people who I really believed in. We aligned on their values. And Rick Chamney, who actually, bless his soul, is no longer with us, he and I really connected on a soul level and a heart level as to how to take care of athletes. How do we surround them with the best possible people, but with an environment where they could stretch and grow and feel comfortable and confident in challenging themselves? Because what I discovered with high performing athletes, whether it's in sport or in business, is that there's a risk that needs to be taken in order to stretch and grow. It means for a minute you have to screw up. It means you have to fall down. It means you have to be willing to take the coaching. And so what Rick and I decided to do was he was going to look after the off ice and the therapies, the physical therapies, et cetera. He was a master of athletic training. And I was going to look after the on ice. And then I was just starting to dabble into the mental training. So our skill sets, it's almost like we hit all four of the quadridity, right? We had head, heart, body, spirit that we were going to surround the athletes with. So he had the athletes sign up for the Presence program, and he would train them off the ice, look after their therapies, teach them about nutrition, the things that they had maybe, scratch the surface on. And then weekly, I would be on the ice with the players. And we had players from almost every NHL hockey team come through that program over the course of the few years that we worked together. And then when he started training and working in the Western Hockey League and then dabbling with the Olympic team and that kind of thing, and I was moving on into the mental performance coaching and leaving Edmonton, going to St. Louis, there was all these transitions that went on. So we basically put the program to the side. He and I still worked with the same clients. We still aligned on everything that we did. We brought people in that we really believed in as far as service providers. We brought in a boxing coach one year. We brought in one of the best nutritionists I've ever worked with. And we were able to create and be curious as to what the athlete needed. And the athlete, most of them were men. I think we had a couple of women, um, got to co-create their program with us because we weren't telling
Mm.
them what it was they were doing. Same thing happens in our shift programs. We're not telling you what to do. It's not a program. It's an investigation and a curiosity. So that's why we're bringing the presence program in all of its glory. I mean, you're not going to have to learn to skate or anything. Don't worry about that. But the concept of being present and the presence program as a holistic program, head, heart, body, spirit. Oh, and some tactics around, business and how to connect to your business in a way that really nurtures you. So that's what the presence program, that's how it started. And I'm so excited that we're going to be bringing it back.
So when we look at, whether it be personal growth, professional growth, achieving an outcome, entrepreneurship, becoming the best entrepreneur you could be, becoming the best leader you can be, there's a lot of desire out there for self-improvement, and in whatever kind of category you want to put it in. If you want to be a better leader, a better business owner, a better team leader within whatever career you might be have. But then so many struggle with actually making lasting changes. In other words, we start and listen, I'll use weight loss as an example. I mean, how many people lose weight and then go on the yo-yo diet because they're not able to sustain it? So many fall into the trap of maybe temporary motivation. They're unable to sustain the long-term habits or put systems in place that support those habits and that really lead to meaningful growth. So when you look at what you see with in that context where people kind of yo-yo up and down in whatever category they have, do you see a consistent pattern or something that you would share that's saying, yeah, this is something that I notice? Again, it's, we used to say about the workshop junkies where they would come to the workshop, get high on coffee and, it's a weekend of blah, 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 blah. And then they get stuff started and then they never finish. So there's some temporary motivation, if you will, or inspiration. But how do you see sustainability? How do you kind of view it? I mean, there's tactics and strategies in that, but what's your overview of that?
Well, we used to call it the caffeine high, right? Because people would leave the workshop and then they would crash afterwards. And then all the money they spent and the time on these gurus, for example, was basically lost. But in the moment they got that short-term dopamine hit or whatever it was they were seeking, there was all this knowledge and coming into them. But then if you don't have the container or the capacity to understand or to understand how you're going to translate that into your day-to-day life. And that's what the biggest thing I find the difference is that I don't start with a client or we don't start a program without doing a bunch of pre-work. We
Mm.
really get them into a state where they understand that when they are in our presence and we are working together, we're collaborating, we're working together, and we're communicating in a way that we are creating together, but it's co-creating. It's their life. So what I think we've done brilliantly over the years, and in my humble opinion, is to create environments where people are in charge of creating what it is that they A, want to get out of it, and B, how they're going to sustain it once they leave. So we do some follow-up calls, coaching calls after the workshops, etc. So that's the biggest thing is that we're not just saying, here, buy this. We had a comment on one of our, I forget, one of the social medias is like, why, and it wasn't somebody that we knew, obviously. They're like, why would people pay money to a couple of motivational speakers to get a high for a weekend? And like, what are you going to get out of it? Just go read a book or just, and I was like, wow. Think about the mindset of that person that was making that comment that he has no idea who we are. We're not putting thousands of people in a room. We're doing the beginning, a middle, and an end. We have a context for each program, and we want it to be a co-creation between us and the client. And as professionals, I don't want somebody hiring me just because they need a coax or they need to be motivated. I think what we're doing is we're creating a new model or a new kind of a paradigm in what coaching can be like. And I think if we stick to our truth and stick to the plan in that regard, yes, we're going to grow our business, which we love to do, but we're going to do it in a way so that we're modeling that sustainability. So when people are living and leaving us and going into their lives after a weekend or a week or 6 months or whatever they're working with us for, is that they have the link for the tools so that they can implement the tools in their own life. And then that
Mhm.
way, I always say to my clients, I'm not responsible for your success, because if you're going to make me responsible for your success, you're also going to make me responsible for your failure. So let's get neutral right away, create the context for our partnership and our collaboration, and then we'll go to work. But I also have found over the years is that the beginning part of this work can be really bumpy, and it's not bumpy in a negative way. It's just bumpy as in a filter system. I want to see how people handle, adversity, or my time zone dyslexia, or, sometimes I'll drop an F bomb. And, if I'm not the right person, if we're not the right people, we want to know that before we even take you in or take your money.
I'm stuck on what you just said a whole minute or two ago, that it's not just understand, they understand. Like, I'm going,
Mhm.
wow, that's pretty genius. I hadn't heard that one before. Where did you come up with that? Like
Well,
that
I
just
didn't
now?
No, I didn't come up with it. I actually heard it a couple of years ago when I was
Huh?
really caught up in the whole when I woke up to what was going on politically and economically in the world.
Yeah.
And I started listening to some people, and some of the people that I follow, I still follow them today, and I'm watching their journey, etc. I'm not, I don't have anybody on a pedestal, but somebody explained the word understand. So let's say you get pulled over by a police officer and he says, ma'am, you were speeding. Da 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 da. Do you understand? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not stupid. But understand means stand under. So there's a power play that goes on in that. And if you say, do you understand? It's a control thing. And then I heard her say at the same time, she goes, so in our world, we use the term understand. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that way we're staying on the equal kind of level.
Interesting thought process. I'll kind of percolate on that. It is interesting though that we go back to some of the fundamentals, right? When we seek change, uh, we say we want change, but we don't change. So until the pain of staying the same gets greater than the pain of change, we will in fact stay the same, and we will live with that dull ache or that sharp pain until we can't take it anymore. Then we initiate change. When we start to do this body of work, you start to unpack and look at what the future could hold. And then you start being more intentional about it so that the change is, in fact, something that you embrace. It's something you want to do because you're working backwards from a clear outcome. And I think that's really important to kind of wrap our minds around always, is that to really start to make these kinds of shifts, you have to at least have an outcome that you're working backwards from so that you can, in fact, take the action. But something that you said, I think there's a lot of things that, show up for people is that they don't want to change. Again, we've had these conversations before because of the fallout, because all of a sudden the people around them are pushing back. The people around them are uncomfortable because they were comfortable with how you were being. And whether that be a significant other, friends, family, all of a sudden you're on this whole, maybe a whole different journey, or you're into a different conversation. And that makes them uncomfortable. So then you're uncomfortable. That's also part of what gets in the way of people making these changes and having lasting change, because they get drawn back into those relationships. And so this goes back to, what is the environment? What is the culture? What are the conversations that you're having? Are you the smartest person in the room, or are you the dumbest person in the room? And I have shifted from that point in my career where I felt that I needed to be the smartest person in the room, to now I'm going, oh, the last thing I want to be is the smartest person in the room. As a matter of fact, I would embrace being the dumbest person in the room. And so I'm happy to be that way. I want to share a couple of wins along the way. So you and I have shared many times where, after reading the book The Gap and the Gain, one of the things that we started doing with friends and family, and before we break bread with our chosen family, for example, we'll have a conversation. What was your win today, or what was your win this week? So we carry that forward, and within the real estate investment network, within the RAIN team, we have some international of course, team. Now, our international team is primarily located in the Philippines. So every Friday, the team gets together and we end the week and we have conversations. How was the week? And one of the conversation or one of the things on the list of things that we talk about is what was your win for the week? Now, this week, I'm on Friday, I'm saying, okay, what was your win? Who wants to go first? Right? Like, let's go around the table. And I'm calling people out and everybody's being a little bit kind of soft. And I'm going, what the heck is going on? I'm going, guys, you got to have had a win this week. You know, it's a bit slow this time of year, just the nature of the business. We have down times. But I said, make it personal. I don't care. I want to know what your wins were. And I'm trying to bring energy to the team, and they're being a little bit soft, and it's okay. But anyways, so I think I called out Micah, who is my executive assistant, manages my calendar. It's awesome. And she goes, well, I do listen. And, since I've been part of RAIN, I've been listening to you and JG about getting off the sidelines and about investing in real estate and what that means. And I think Mike has been with us over, I think, 5 or 7 years. I've lost track. Yeah. But my point is, guess what? She had bought a piece of property. I go, what? Are you kidding me? Like, when were you going to share that? And she
Wow.
giggles, she laughs. And so she had actually built their home, set it up, went through the whole construction process. I think she has her parents living with her. I don't remember the exact details. The point is that she took action just based on now this many years later. Now, keep in mind is that this is in the Philippines. And so the world is different, but she took the understanding of the economic data. She took the process, the systems, all the things that she's heard us speak about so many times. Well, I go, well, that's cool. And then the next thing you know, Ruth uh, speaks up and she goes, she kind of giggles and she goes, well, I've been listening to you and JG. So Ruth is our event coordinator. So she's constantly there talking about what's going, like she's hearing in the background all the time what's going on. And she's listening to JG and I. And of course, what are we saying? We're saying, these are the steps you take. This is how you do it. Get out of your own way. Take action. Look at the data. Don't get in the emotion. And what does she do? She's not only did a very smart pre-construction deal, she did that. She also went on to buy another primary residence. So I go, wow,
Way
you
to
guys, like,
go.
this is so awesome. When are you going to tell me all this? What the heck? And they're all kind of giggling. And then the next thing you know, Jamie, who's our video producer, she speaks up and she goes, well, Patrick, I helped you do all those master classes and video all those master classes and all that stuff. And I just couldn't. Like, how could I not do something? So she has taken action. So I'm just like going,
Wow.
holy cow. So,
So great.
as it certainly lights us up when we can make that kind of a difference. And when we make that kind of difference with the team, it's pretty exciting. And so we had lots of wins that this week in that regard. I was in Edmonton. I was talking to the pro skate team and the guys, and they're doing some cool stuff. So, for us, what drives us always is that, it's one thing to be and take coach position, to be in this planet as many years as we have, and to have kind of the experience and perhaps the wisdom that we've got and to be able to share it. But it just takes it to a whole new level when our teams, even our clients, when they share in their wins, because it goes, yes, that really is what our purpose is to make a difference and help people go. So anyways, it was kind of a cool week and it was exciting in that regard. And it really was about them borrowing the confidence based on what we share to and then gaining and having the courage to take action. And I just so really proud of everybody. So it's just great. I loved
Well,
it.
it's humbling too, right? When,
Yeah.
we got an email from Angie, one of our clients that was a coaching client of mine for years, RAIN member. She did shift, and just a bunch of pictures of her family. And she requested a deck of cards, a deck
Oh
of,
yes, the Steffisms.
I'm so
So
excited.
yes,
You have no idea that
yes,
just, I don't know. I get so fired up because we don't get a lot of feedback, right? And like when we get the
super
negative
fun. Yep.
feedback, it's like, why are you hiring some motivational speakers to tell you what to do? I
Yeah,
take that on so heavy, right? And then
yeah.
hearing about the team and the wins that they're having. And, we had a meeting this morning with Jadine, who basically runs our skate tech world. And same thing. It's like, okay, people don't always hire you or buy what you do. You guys, you got to get that they're what they're hiring you or they're coming to the seminars because of who you are. There's tons of coaches out there. That's what we say about content versus context. You can hire
Mhm.
anybody. You could go online. There's gurus everybody everywhere. You can't walk into a bookstore and not find walls and walls of coaching and self-help. Everybody's a guru. Everybody knows everything. And I think what was really humbling this week and having the grandkids here and Aaron and stuff is that, oh, we got to slow down and be present to not just what we do, but who we are, and who we're being. I think I'm starting to wake up to the value of the authenticity and the commitment that we have to building the environment where people can, have a win like that and then giggle and tell you about their real estate win. I mean, I'm so proud of you.
Well, we're excited about a lot of things, not the least of which is the initiative around the self-funding house. And that was really what was exciting about the RAIN team, right? Because within the self-funding house initiative, it really was, some would call it house hacking. And the self-funding house initiative is really about creating a financial future by investing in your own home, regardless of what the headlines say that you can't do it. And so we're building a new self-funding house community to create the environment and the culture for people to be in amongst like-minded individuals who have similar goals. So it's kind of cool to have a few of these initiatives.
Whoa,
What
whoa,
was my
whoa,
other
slow
win?
down, cowboy. I don't want you to step over this. I asked you this before we jumped on air. It's like, why do you love doing this? What is it that drives you to come up with
Well,
these new concepts and to really keep
well,
moving
this
forward,
wasn't.
pushing that
But
boulder up the hill, so to speak?
but this wasn't my concept. This was a concept by Derek Lobo and Rod
I know, I
Schulhauser,
know, I
who
know. I'm not. You don't need to market. Like, just tell me why you love this stuff.
well, I love it because it's what lights me up. It's part of my mission, part of my purpose.
But
Be your
why?
greatest self, live your best life.
But
Why? Because
why?
I love to see other people succeed. I love it. That's part of my hardwiring. Sometimes I've had this conversation on a few podcasts that I've been recently invited to be a guest on when we get into these conversations. And as much as, we are the CEO of our lives, we're the CEO, or I'm the CEO of the Real Estate Investment Network and Skate Tech Group of Companies and all the rest of the things that go with it. I don't know that I'm necessarily, uh, I, I'm really clear on a couple of things, not the least of which is I don't need to lead the charge. I think I'm way better in the role of second in command. I love getting behind a vision that you have, for example, which I've done many times over the years, where you have a great vision. You are a visionary in many, many ways. And yet I can be the person behind it. I can be I call myself, I like being the Sherpa. There's the guy who's going to lead us and take us up the path of the mountain. I'm the person that's got my hand on your back or on
Mhm.
your butt, pushing you up the mountain and giving you what you need to achieve that. I like that role because to me, there's lots of productivity. So when I see somebody that wants to do something, I like getting behind them. I like pushing them up that mountain that they want to climb. I want to give them the tools. That's just for me what I love to do. And so I don't know how else to explain it in terms of why. It's because that's part of what my purpose, I believe, is. And it's what lights me up. It's what I can do all day long and what I love to do. So that's kind of how that goes.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So was that helpful for you?
Yeah, totally. But yeah, because sometimes I get stuck on, okay, I get what you're doing and I watch all your reels and your shorts and all that. And I can get what you're saying. But sometimes what's missing for me is that what I know is this giant heart guy. And sometimes I think it gets lost under your excitement and wanting everybody to just do what they can to have their best life. But what I seek when I'm watching somebody that I'm thinking of hiring or whatever is I want to know who they are. I want to know a little bit of their story. I want to know why they're doing it. I mean, Simon Sinek didn't come up with the why. I'm pretty sure I did years ago. If you don't lead with your why, then it's really hard for people to understand or understand the how and the what and the where and all that kind of stuff. But when you flip the why in the middle inside your heart space, people resonate with that. I find they do. And I know that my practice over the years has grown because there's just a place where that truth of who I am has to come through in my coaching, or I'm just like everybody else.
Yeah, I think there's there's a fundamental is that, for me is understanding what drives me. And, even with my men's shift group, you know, Jason, David, Mark, I mean, all the guys, they're like, I love being able to support them in moving forward. They're being hugely courageous. They're doing some really, really great work. They're working hard. They're stretching. And for me, when I start to see and recognize the wins, when we started this program, the Shift Men's Group, many months ago
Almost
now,
a year ago now.
yeah, I think, well, not a year. I think it's been 8 months or 9 months ago, whatever. Like I get to see their development, if you will, where they started. Because of course I'm hearing their conversation where we started and what's in their way then compared to what's in their way today, the conversations we're having today versus the conversations we were having when they first started. So I get to see their evolution, their development, if you will, as men. And it really is inspiring for me as well. And when I start to see their journey and see that they're making progress and they're getting their wins along the way, and none of it's perfect, none of it's easy, but they're doing some really, really cool stuff. So for me, again, that's kind of inspiring. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's the kind of work that I love to do. And it's like in the world of RAIN and supporting real estate investors in creating a financial future, of taking action. And so with the self-funding house, it's a great initiative. Number one, it's a huge problem in Canada. Well, it is everywhere, but let's just talk about Canada. And many believe that they can't get through the problem. And I'm here to say, no, you can. And we're here to solve the problem. And so in working with Rod Schulhauser and Derek Lobo and the Self-Funding House Initiative, that was an opportunity that got created because of who I am, which is that guy that wants to help people create a financial future, and using real estate as one of the tools. So a little bit long-winded in that, but I think it's an important context to give people.
No, it is. And you make a good point, is that we're being told, or through the government or the mainstream media, that, house pricings and the bubble in Toronto and Vancouver, it's impossible. And you know what? There's always going to be a real estate winter. This one's really dark. For a lot of people, it could be with mortgage rates, interest rates, how hard it is now. This new rental thing that's happening in BC, it's drawing people out of this market. And I think, based on your passion and your commitment, I think there's going to be ways to reframe a lot of the things that are happening externally. Like the NDP government in BC, they're absolutely ridiculous. Now it's 4 months to, give notice to a tenant, et cetera. And yet you can only qualify for that mortgage rate for 3 months.
90 days. Yeah.
90 days. So they're doing things without thinking. But if we do the opposite, not the obvious, don't freak out, but do the opposite and go, how can this work? What do I need to do? How can I take advantage of the knowledge and the community and I look at the former RAIN members that you've been running into, whether it's in Toronto or in Vancouver at different events you're going to. There's a world of knowledge out there. There's a
Huge.
world. And I
Huge.
just think it's a place where the people that have come through the RAIN door that are now coaching or teaching or whatever, there's so much knowledge there. And if we just can just consolidate that again and bring that energy, even if they don't get together or do a workshop or whatever, but
Yeah.
we need to galvanize and create a conversation that, real estate's not dead. It's not over. We got into Bitcoin and we're into the stock market, and we've done things over that we've screwed up and we've had great wins. But we've also tended to do the opposite of what the mainstream is telling us, So I think that with the Self-Funding House and our programs that we're doing right now, it's weird. Sorry, it's not, I don't want it to sound like a sales pitch. We were talking about the Presence program, but I think as this kind of weaves around, it's like, okay, so that is about being present. That is about understanding and knowing who we are and what our contributions, staying in our lane, right? Not trying to be all things to all people, not panicking, not trying to throw shit at the wall to see what sticks, but just slowing down, stepping back, and then creating that environment for people, for clients, for people to come in and go, okay, I just need to take a breath here. I need to find a way to get present. Maybe, you understand meditation or prayer or whatever that is, that to calm the physiology. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's a walk in nature. Like when we start to really expand our programs, and we have this beautiful property out here that we're going to be sharing more and more, is that is going to grow itself, because what's missing right now, I think, are spaces where people can be truly who they are, be present to their fears, be present to their wounds, to their traumas, to their vision, to their goals, and start to rebalance that again in our nature. I'm dealing a lot with some COVID PTSD with athletes that are injured, either from the vaccine or from whatever. But so when you start to look at the realities of where we are, I don't want to have my head stuck in the sand. And that's what circling back to what we talked about earlier, is that I want to be aware, and I want to help people create awareness as to what's true for them, and not stick their head in the sand and not say a certain narrative is right because I believed in it my whole life. Well, what if I'm wrong? What if you're wrong? Let's create an environment where we can talk about what if we're wrong and support each other in that. So I don't know where I was going with this, but it lit me up.
Okay, I have no idea where you're going with it either. Something that showed up from you that you said, though, there was a time in our lives, in our career, where somebody would say problem, we'd go, no problem. Problem, no problem. Problem, no problem.
No
That
problem.
was a response. We got a problem.
No
Problem,
problem.
no problem. And so ultimately, when we look at, as entrepreneurs, what's our job? And that is to solve problems. And I think every day we have to have problems to solve. That's really where the growth is. That's where the resistance lives. So problem, no problem. And I'll leave it on that note. Steffany, I think we covered a lot of ground. Hopefully there's some good insights in here for our listener. And thanks for listening. Steffany, thank you.
That was fun.